Hi all. So today I thought we would talk a little bit about picky eating. I'm not sure if anybody will join, but I will just hang around to see if anybody would like to join. And I'm always happy to add you to video too, so you can share some of your thoughts on this topic. I noticed in a few Facebook groups for mums in the local area, this topic was coming up quite a lot. People were saying that their kids were only eating a few foods and very picky and very, it's quite stressful actually. So I recently wrote a blog post with some tips to help. And as I say, I'm here to offer support with this, to give some tips and ideas on this topic. So, some really good resources. The Ellen Sachter Institute. She is a registered dietitian and a therapist, family feeding expert, and she has wonderful books. One is How to Raise a Healthy Family, or hold on a minute, let me just check the name of it and get it exactly right for you. I will link it below. Here we go. It is Secrets to Feeding a Healthy Family. And another really good book is, I'm doing a Facebook Live, is a book by Dr. Katia Rohel, and it's called Helping Your Child with Extreme Picky Eating. This is based on responsive feeding. It's really practical. It's very kind and compassionate. I highly recommend this one. She also has one written for teens with more of a workbook component. So it's really good to bring up any concerns you have with your doctor, your kid's pediatrician, and to have a look at the growth charts. If your child has been following the same growth chart for their weight and their height, and that gives you some reassurance. And it could be just developmental. Some kids go through periods in their development that they just get picky, often in the toddler years, and they often, by and large, come out of it without too much intervention. So knowing that your kid, even though they might be picky and not eating a great variety of foods, gives you some reassurance. So that may help to know that too. And also, if we were to plot kids feeding on a graph, it probably will look very much like this, up and down. I'm going to see, Crystal, would you like to join and chat with me on this topic? I'm going to see if you want to. Oh, you're just here. Okay, but if you wanted to, you're welcome to. So, some days kids will eat loads, and they'll finish all their plate and they'll be asking for snacks and they're very hungry. And other days they might just be like a little sparrow picking at their meals and not finishing them, or just in one of those moods that they don't want to eat that much. But if you were to keep a food diary over the course of a week, what you would see is you'd probably actually see it's not that bad. They ate some chicken on their plate that day. The next day they ate all of their vegetables. They had quite a few pieces of fruit. And it kind of generally works itself out. The way we talk about food as parents is very powerful too. We don't want to label foods as good and bad. Foods do not have a moral value attached to them. This can maybe affect the way kids perceive food, and we don't want to use bribery when it comes to picky eaters. We don't want to say, you'll only get a dessert if you finish all that's on your plate, because that makes that dessert all the more desirable. And what they're eating, they might think, it's not that appealing now. And also it kind of weighs up the dessert being more forbidden or, as I say, more desirable. You also want to be careful not to pressure your child with their eating. You want your child to be part of the dinner table, a participant in the family meal, the same way that mom or dad or brothers and sisters are. You don't want them to feel like they have all this attention on them and all this pressure to eat. You may have noticed that your child likes a few foods. They're kind of like their preferential foods. Those are the ones they feel more comfortable with. It's familiar to them, and you know they're going to eat those things. So it's really good to have those on the table for them. There's something called the division of responsibility. This was done by Ellen Satter, and it kind of gives the parents a role when it comes to feeding and the child a role when it comes to feeding. So the parent's responsibility is to cook, shop, and provide the food and decide when and where it's going to be eaten. The kid's responsibility is to decide what and how much they're going to eat. This is, again, sounds radical, but we have to trust our children and their ability to self-regulate with food and to, as I say, take the pressure off the situation. Family-style meals are really helpful. So, like a big table with all the serving dishes on there, and let everybody decide what they want to put on their plate. This is particularly good for kids who have picky eating, because again, there's less pressure on that. Oh, thanks for joining, Casey. I'm not very good at these. I kind of feel like I'm just jabbering away to myself, so I'm so happy a couple of people are with me. Let me know if you want to come on camera, if you want to share any of things you've learned with your son. You're more than welcome to come onto camera. So, like I was saying, do family-style meals and have the child with picky eating have a couple of their preferable foods so they feel safe. And so they know that if they don't like what's on the table, it's okay because they have their foods that they're comfortable with. Patience, 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 parents. It can take months before that child, thanks, and you do so many amazing Facebook Lives, that child will slowly start to try new foods, but it could take a while. It's always good to kind of brainstorm and think, hey, did the child have any difficult experiences with food? Maybe when they were really small, they had a choking episode with food, or they had food poisoning, or it upset their tummy, or just not a pleasant experience. Maybe they saw somebody eating in a way they didn't like, or so knowing that history, you can kind of feel that it's almost traumatic for them sometimes to eat certain foods. Maybe if you've had a period of gastroenteritis or food poisoning yourself, maybe you ate some bad shrimp somewhere on vacation, it may take you a while to have the guts to eat them again. Only eat ants, mac and cheese. Yes, I mean, sometimes they'll only eat a few things. I mean, I've had a kid recently, he only ate like peanut butter and sandwiches, some fruits and chicken nuggets, but only from McDonald's. So they may even be very specific on brand as well. So it's really good. If you do have concerns to consider, you could get an evaluation by an occupational therapist or even a speech therapist. Make sure that everything's fine with the mouth and the way they swallow and sensory issues. And as I say, a registered dietitian and working with your pediatrician. So you want to also focus on having regular meals. Kids really need structured eating, because sometimes in these situations where they only eat a few foods, they tend to graze a lot and snack in between meals. A lot of times parents are worried if kids are not eating enough, and they give maybe supplement drinks or they make smoothies, which is fine, but you don't want the kid kind of sipping on these all day long, because we want to kind of utilize our natural hunger and fullness cues. So it's really good that the kid comes to the table hungry. Because we all know if you're hungry, you're much more likely to try new foods and eat. So again, the environment is also important. You want your children to be in a calm environment, free of distractions. Put away those iPhones and iPads. Little Amir loves all food that are expensive. Dragon fruit, avocado, crab fruit, exotic fruit. That's because you've raised him well and given him the opportunity to try all those fun foods. That's not necessarily a negative, but yeah. And it's great. And also, on that note, don't put our preconceived ideas or expectations on what we think our children will or won't like. You hear this funny expression, don't yuck someone's yum. Or sometimes we may be out somewhere and they have mussels or octopus on the menu or something really, you might think, oh, a kid would never eat that. But yeah, he's welcome to come. You must visit. They may surprise you and eat it. I remember once years ago, we went to the botanical gardens in Montreal, and in the gift shop they had these little samples of insects, because it's all about, it's a great sustainable source of protein. It's really easy to raise crickets and they're really healthy. And my son, he was just snacking on them. He wasn't frightened to try the bugs. So don't put our preconceived ideas and our own preferences. And even if we have strong food preferences, maybe there's foods we can't stand as parents, try not to say that too much in front of your kids when you're at the dinner table. Maybe, I hate Brussels sprouts. Oh, I never like those. That may put your kid off trying them. Try not to comment too much about the food. Try and make it a relaxed atmosphere. Talk about how your day was, what you did at school, what your plans are for the weekend, so the pressure's off. He only eats certain fruits and vegetables come from a garden because he has quality taste. Yes, wonderful. And I love that you garden. You always miss it in the winter, don't you? I have a little bit growing now because I have some row covers, but very little, and it grows very slowly. Yeah, I wasn't brave enough to do the crickets either, but I kept quiet and I let him do it. So what other things could we talk about? We talked about trust. I think trust is really important in any relationship, but particularly between parents and kids. So I don't recommend sneaking foods in. Sometimes when we're worried that the kid's not eating that much variety, we're really worried about the nutritional intake. But maybe initially, if we just focus on eating and slowly expanding what's eaten, maybe we don't see it's completely perfect nutritionally, but we're looking long term, we'll get there. So that's something to think about. But if you sneak things in, maybe making stews or soups with lots of veggies in, or you sneak greens into smoothies and the child doesn't know it's in there, and then they find out and they don't want it, they may be upset with you because you've not been completely truthful. And that may make them more suspicious of other foods you're offering them. So be honest with them. Involve your kids in, like you're doing, in gardening, visiting local farms, particularly in the summer when you can pick your own strawberry farms and blueberries, and it's really fun. So they know where food comes from, and they've built this lovely relationship in a garden. They've seen it growing and the miracle of it, and they're much more willing to try it if they've had a part in growing it. Take your kids to the grocery store. Ask them what they'd like for dinner. What would they like to put in the grocery cart? Ask them what they would like to cook and get them involved in the kitchen. Little kids can use safe knives. They like to make smoothies. Let them set the dinner table. Clear away. Be part of the process. They'll be more willing to have a sense of pride. I've noticed recently my son's started making a very simple pasta dish. We just roast sweet coloured peppers with olive oil, maybe a bit of balsamic vinegar, salt and pepper and garlic, and then you blend it and makes this nice pepper sauce. And he eats that plate so well compared to maybe other things because he's had a sense of pride that he makes it. And again, don't be hung up on you can only eat certain foods at certain times and be laid back around food, not having strict food rules. My daughter's also been baking a lot recently, and the other day she had a slice of cake for breakfast. It's okay. So don't let them feel like there's food rules in the house. So try not to let there be any shame around food and messaging. We only eat organic in our house. We only have clean foods in our house, because again, that could backfire on you. Try to just normalize all foods. What other things? We talked about modeling. So again, you are the role model in the house. Your kids look up to you. They learn from you, and sometimes even things you do without consciously doing it, they're watching. They're like little hawks and they're listening. We've got amazing hearing. So the way you talk about food and eating can have a very strong effect on them too. So if they see that you have regular meals and you care for yourself and your health and you enjoy food, they're more likely to grow up that way. So just show them that you enjoy the act of cooking and you enjoy sitting slowly, tasting and enjoying that food. And don't be ashamed. My kids sometimes laugh at me when I go, so good, and let's go here and try this. I mean, they might kind of tease you, but that's a good thing for kids to see. We talked about kids listening, discovering new foods, get messy in the kitchen, especially young kids. Wow, they can make a lot of mess. So you have to kind of have a tolerance for the messiness of learning and all the pots and pans which are going to be out, the flour on the floor. And also with very small toddlers and small kids, they are messy eaters. That's how they learn. They learn that way. And especially, the playing with it and the textures and the smell. And so just have a tolerance. Put a mat under the floor or have a hardwood floor under so it's easy to clean up. Don't feel rushed. Have a good time frame for your meal. Maybe a good 30 minutes or a bit longer. You don't want it to drag on too long though. You don't want meals to be a draining, exhausting process that lasts hours, just trying to get those bites in your kid, because then it won't be enjoyable for you. You'll be stressed and the kid will dread meal time. So maybe have a time and know that, if it doesn't go well, if they don't actually eat that much and only have a few bites of their preferred food, it's okay. It's one meal. And by and large, they probably will eat a bit next time, a bit more of a next meal, and it will even out at the end of the day. And if they're really hungry, you can always give them something later. There's no textbook or rule book with parenting. A lot of it is following your intuition, knowing your child, and responding to them. So really tuning in, how are they acting? Do they look scared or fearful with a new food? Are they gagging or saying they're feeling nauseous? Are they distressed? If you see any of that, back off and let them guide the process, because the goal is that your child eats and expands what they eat by their own internal motivation. So it's something they want to do, because they're much more likely to stick with it long term. This can be a big thing in teenagers as they're trying to be more independent. So when the kids are older, let them make the decisions. What do you want to do? What do you feel is comfortable or safe for you. And sometimes you'll be amazed, like when they're with their peers or they're eating out with their friends, they might be more willing to try new foods and be more braver when they're with their peers and mum and dad aren't around because there's no pressure there. And the parents may be surprised, wow, you tried sushi or you ate that with so-and-so? I didn't think you liked that. But again, the biggest thing is taking away the anxiety and the pressure at meal times. So I've spoken for a fair while. I hope some of those tips were useful to you. Folks who join and watch this later, you're welcome to send me a message if I can be of any help. And if you want me to talk about anything else nutritionally, let me know. Please join in the conversation. Thank you.